In this lesson we're going to start talking about layer masks. We'll begin with a typical example of a use for a layer mask and then see if we can take it to a next level and a more professional type approach. So I'm going to begin by opening up some samples which I've downloaded just off Google Images here. And let's start with something nice and easy. Let's have a look at this. Bright yellow flower against its blue background here. I've just gone into full screen mode by pressing the F key, and I'm using the space bar to pan the image around there. Now a typical effect or a typical use, one that you might be familiar with, and I'm only using this as an example. There's 1,000,001 uses for the reasons why we may need a layer mask, but to give you a familiar example might be to copy this layer and then to desaturate all of the color from this top layer. There's many ways to do that. We'd go the image, adjustments and desaturate, or you would learn the keyboard shortcut of Control-Shift-U, which is the way I would normally do it. Anyway, which renders this image now in black and white. And typically a use for a layer mask now would be to add the layer mask, and that's this icon at the bottom of the layers palette. And the age-old rule for layer masks are white reveals and black conceals. So if we're speaking about white, white is revealing the contents of the layer that it's attached to, and in this case our desaturated layer. And black would conceal this desaturated layer. Now if white reveals and black conceals, then obviously we could take a paintbrush, paint in black, and don't forget we are painting on the layer mask now. This would be the image having the box around it. However, the layer mask is now highlighted with this box indication around it. And I'll just hit the right square bracket key and start painting, thereby painting the colour back in if this is what I wanted to do, and this might be your typical approach for painting the colour back into certain places on the file. However, two things wrong with this approach. Granted, we're only working with this single flower head, but in the next examples to come, we're going to take this so we're dealing with a whole field full of flowers, and I wouldn't want to be painstakingly trying to paint the colour back into each one of them, so it's time consuming. And also you've got to question your accuracy with the brush. You know, are you prepared to zoom right the way in and work with very small brush sizes, and hopefully you can stick very close to the edge, nice and neat. And as I say, are you going to be able to do that with each and every flower in the scene? If you are, you've got far more time on your hands than I have. There is a better approach, a more logical and a more professional approach. So let's begin. We just use our knowledge of channels, and we use the mask that's already built in. I'll go to the channels palette, and let me just drag this down a little. There's the red channel, there's the green, and there's the blue. Now we're looking for the channel that offers us already built in the most contrast. To be honest, any one of these channels would do the trick pretty nicely. We've got the red there, the green we could easily separate, or the blue from the background. Red or blue, your choice. Let's go with the blue. So we copy this layer, just a straight levels adjustment, no need for an adjustment layer here. We'll make the whites whiter, the blacks blacker, and we'll keep choking this mask until we can get exactly what we want there, and click OK. Now obviously there are parts of this flower where we may need to touch up and paint these areas in. That will become obvious. I'm not going to do that just yet, but we'll keep things simple just for now. Now that we've made this simple mask, we'll go back to our layers palette and do what we did last time. I'm going to copy the layer from the keyboard this time, Control J. That's J for jump, Control and J. We'll desaturate, adjustments, Control-Shift-U, don't forget, and there you'll find it in the menu. So we've dropped the colour. Now then, we've made our mask here. To load this as a selection, I hold down the Control key and click with the mouse here. That gives us our selection. While the selection's active, while it's on screen and active, I'll now click this button here to add the layer mask. And as you can see, although the mask needs some slight adjustments there, this is the principle I'm putting across. You'll get a far more fast and far more accurate result by taking this approach, by using the mask that's already built in, either based on luminosity or colour, than you would have if you'd tried to do the job by hand. And don't forget, we're dealing with a single flower here, but as I mentioned earlier, we could have been dealing with a field full of flowers. Let me just show you how we can. I'm just going to delete this layer mask. I can do that from the mask by right clicking and choose delete mask. Let me go back to the channels palette and we've got our mask there. If I were to choose something simple like the wand, and I've clicked with the wand, so I've got everything around this flower surrounded in white selected, and if I inverse the selection, then we've got the flower itself and the stem selected, and while it's selected I can fill its area with black. That would be edit, fill with black. I'll click OK. So there's our completed mask there. Once again, to load this as a selection, I can Control click on it, or I can drag it down to this icon here. That loads that as a mask. And while it's active on the screen, if I add the layer mask, then we get our perfectly masked selection, and it does a perfect job rather than having to paint painstakingly around the edge of the flower, and hoping that we can do a really fast and accurate job. As you can see there, by our knowledge of channels and a basic knowledge of creating a mask within a channel, we've been able to get a much faster and much more accurate result with this example. So we'll leave this